Good Monday morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner Daily Technical Update. It is the 13th of January and again I just have to mention that this is for educational purposes only. There is no advice or recommendation whatsoever intended doing this little video here. Right, let's start with Microsoft, but I will direct your attention to the update I did last week on some of the bigger companies. Check it out also on the semiconductors. But here we have the Microsoft that spiked lower again Friday to the previous spike down here, recorded on the 2nd of January at 414.85. We are below the cloud. We are in a negative trend, bearish trend, negative sentiment on the RSI. Closed back below 40 again. I think we'll see Microsoft it's sliding lower in the coming weeks, as we will probably see with most of the market. We get to that, but we are below the cloud. We are broken below this rising trend line there. And also, if we're looking at the weekly chart, it doesn't look too good. There's been a strong divergence for quite some time. On the RSI, you see declining RSI, but market has moved higher. Moving on to the S&P 500 that took out support Friday, testing the 100 moving average. We are now below the cloud. We are in this gap area here. I think we will see it pushing lower, and I also think we'll close this gap here fairly shortly, maybe even this afternoon. Negative sentiment on the RSI. We are in a bearish trend. It is confirmed here. Pre-market, we can see we are about 0.25% down below the support here at 5,830 and below the 100 moving average. The Nasdaq 100 also closed below support, not the strong support. We are still above the cloud. Negative sentiment on the RSI is still not there. We are still in a positive sentiment because we haven't closed below 40 threshold, still forming this falling wedge-like pattern, but we have confirmed a bearish trend short term. So I think we could see it pushing a little bit lower here in the coming days. Pre-market, we are down about 0.4%. We are now in the cloud with the pre-market here, as we can see, and I think we'll see it push low. If we see the RSI pushing below 40 threshold, well, then there is potential lower, and you can see we're broken out of this triangle-like pattern. And if we add we can see some support here around 20,312. On the Dow Jones Industrial confirmed downtrend Friday. Next support is around 41,563 level. Negative sentiment broken below its rising trend line there, so it looks fairly heavy, and there could actually be sell-off down to around 41,000, where we also have the 200 moving average coming up. It will give some support around that level. In Asia this morning, we have Seng now below 19,000. I warned you about it could occur last week, and now we have it pushing lower, down about 1.1%, just above the 200 moving average. I think we'll see it pushing lower to around 18,000 here during this week. We have negative sentiment on the RSI, indicating likely lower levels. In Europe, EuroStoxx 50, well, stalling a bit, still in a bullish trend, but it's weak, as we can see, and there's actually minor divergence on the RSI. You can see the values there have been declining when the market moves higher, so it is not a strong uptrend. And here pre-market we are down around 0.5%. That could indicate that we are in for at least a correction below 49.50. I think we'll see it lower here the next today or tomorrow or next couple of days. However, if it takes out its peak here from a couple of days ago, last week, then we will see it pushing higher above 5,000 and more. The DAX index, well, formed this doji-like here, but it wasn't followed by a negative candle. But negative candle we got Friday, so we are still below its all-time high. There's no divergence on the RSI, though, which is quite interesting. I mean, the RSI is lower than here, but market was also lower than here. So There is a little bit of a lifeline that it could move higher, but if it starts pushing below the lower rising trend line there and below the 20,000 mark, then I think we'll see a sell-off to 19,674, possibly lower. But 55 moving average, get a little bit of support, but it could be heavy. If it takes out the peak there at 20,480, I expect a new all-time high. Here pre-market, we can see we are down 0.3%, so it's not much really, but it seems like we are turning around a little bit, at least in a correction phase. So it is a little bit hard to predict, but given that also the other markets are a little bit weak, well then it could spell some trouble here, at least short term. I would take off some risk. We are at 38.2 retracement and could push lower to 19,962, obviously 61.8. If it takes out 19,642, well then we are in a bearish trend. Euro dollar is sliding lower, taking out its low from last week and is now testing the 102 level. And if we're looking at the weekly chart, we can see what's actually going on here. We are now taking out this support here at 102.20. Potential lower. Short term, there's a little bit divergence here on the RSI. You see RSI is not really supporting lower levels, but you have to remember we are in a negative sentiment. We are in a bearish trend, both medium and short term. So there is potential lower in the coming days and weeks, despite the fact that we could see a little bit of a bounce. As long as we stay below this falling trend line here, I think we will push lower. And medium term, that we are not in exhaustion mode just yet. Cable also quite heavy, being sold off further both Friday and also this early morning here in Asia. Probably gonna continue a little while longer. We have the RSI negative sentiment a little bit in stressed at the moment, but there's no divergence on the RSI. I think we'll see pushing lower towards 120 level here in the coming weeks. Euro sterling, on the other hand, the sterling is being weakened at the moment, quite significant, and there's a reason why we have seen the yields in UK moving higher with the rest of the world, and we have the euro sterling pushing towards the 200 moving average and 84. 45.50 resistance area here. I think we could see it being reached. A positive sentiment on the RSI, no divergence, likely higher levels. Yen, dollar yen. We have dollar yen that is weakening. I think we should keep an eye on 155.95 support here. If it takes out that, expect a correction lower, and if it does, then I will already now add a Fibonacci retracement just to give an idea of where we could push down to, probably around the 61.8 at 152.55 and the 200 moving average coming up here. But only if it takes out that, then it is in play. We are still in a bullish trend, despite the fact that there's also now divergence on the RSI. So it's really, you see the declining RSI indicating exhaustion of the uptrend, and it's been quite weak lately. Euro yen starts selling off now, and I think I will say, well, we are almost in the bearish territory. We are in the cloud, so we are in neutral zone here, but we are below the 55, we are below 100. Still positive sentiment on the RSI, but it looks fairly heavy at the moment. Support here at 159.80 could be tested. Aussie yen has taken out its lower rising trend line here, support line. Negative sentiment on the RSI, so it wasn't a big surprise that couldn't get above the 55, couldn't get above the 100, and couldn't get above the cloud. So really bad. I think we'll see it pushing lower here in the coming weeks. On sterling yen, now below the cloud, now below 100 moving average, and now in a negative sentiment, likely to push to 190, 180, 80, maybe even here in the coming times. We can also see the 55 moving average crossed over the 200 moving average now, so it's actually underlying a very negative sentiment. Aussie dollar also sliding lower, and if we're looking at the weekly chart, we can see it's actually now taking out the support here, or the lows here, back from 2022, and we are now back in this area here. We talked about it several times last week in this from 2020. and is pushing towards 60. And I think we could see that here in the coming weeks. There will be some correction, of course, but we are in this falling channel, and it's fairly strong. A little bit divergence on the RSI, indicating slightly exhaustion mode, but medium term there is still pushing lower. Dollar Canada, Dollar Canada slowly crawling higher. If it takes out 144.67, well, then I expect a push towards the 146, 147, these peaks here back from 2020. And Sterling Canada, well, Sterling Canada has been sold off heavily and continued Friday and also this morning, testing very close to test the 175 here fairly shortly. And I think we'll see it being tested and then expect a bit of a bounce. And what I will do, I will add a Fibonacci just to give me an idea if when that bounce kicks in, which I believe it will, from around these levels here. I don't think we're just there yet, but then we could see a bounce up to around 177 and a 200 moving average. EURSD still trading in this ascending triangle-like pattern, still lower. Still higher highs and higher lows here. You can see higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, so on. But if it takes that out and we see a break below the rising trend line here, then that could mean that we are EuroSwiss is reversing its bullish trend and dropping lower. But for now, we are still in a bullish trend. However, it is a little bit fragile. It needs to be confirmed about 94.50 for further upside potential above 95. Dollar Swiss pushing higher and taking out 91.57 resistance. And on the weekly chart, we can see where we are pushing towards. We are pushing towards 92.45, 45.5 in this region here. And I think it will be reached. There's no divergence on the positive sentiment on the RSI, indicating we are likely to see a push up there. And then I think we'll see a correction. Almost similar picture on the dollar index, of course. You see it pushing higher here, very close to 110, just below it. I think we'll see it pushing higher towards 110.5 area. There's no strong resistance whatsoever. We can say there is a little bit here when this sell-off occurred at 111. But if we get up there, I think we'll see a correction, a little bit stressed short term, but I think we'll push higher. Moving on to gold, and I think we should zoom in actually a little bit here. We can see trading now above the upper falling trend line, but what is key to notice is that the RSI didn't close above 60 threshold. I would really like to see that for further upside potential, but we have established a bull trend. We are above the cloud, but I could see that we are sliding a little bit lower, maybe testing the upper cloud from the upper side before next move higher. Positive sentiment on the RSI weekly and no divergence, indicating likely higher levels, but it is struggling a little bit. Silver, well, it couldn't hold on and follow through to 31. It reached the 161.8 projection of this double bottom like pattern here, and then it lost its strength and lost its mojo. If it starts moving below 29.90, well, then it could be stuck back in this range here down to around 29. Still negative sentiment, but there was divergence indicating a bounce, but it really needs to follow through. The thing is also that the 55 moving average is coming down, and we have the 100 there kind of putting a lid on it, so limiting the upside potential at least here short term. Copper, 433 and a half resistance, spiked above it and above the 200 moving average, but then can't close above at the moment. Positive sentiment on the RSI indicating we could see it crawling higher, but it really just needs to gather some strength down here around the 100 moving average. They're coming up, 55 starting turning around. So I think we'll see a little bit of weakness here, and then we'll have next move higher. On the energy side, we have crude oil pushing higher here. We have WTI very close to the previous peak here at 78.46. I think it will take it out. Positive sentiment on the RSI, no divergence indicating likely higher levels. What is key also here on the weekly, we see RSI very close to 60 threshold. If it does close above it, that means that by the end of the week it closes above, well, then there's potential higher, and it's broken this resistant level here at 78. 46, and then there is potential higher towards 85 for WTI. The 200 moving average, it will add a little bit of resistance to it. More or less the same picture on Brent Crude oil, very close to test resistance, 81.58. Pushing higher, testing the upper falling trend line. So there's potential higher to 85, maybe even higher, but 85 there should be potential. Could be a little bit of setback short term, but I think it would push higher. Dutch gas, excuse me. Dutch gas still in a corrective phase. A lot of volatility intraday. It hasn't opened just yet today, but Friday it dipped below the 61.8 retracement. I don't think it will push lower, but if it takes out Friday's low there, well, then we are looking at 41.5 area, which is the 100 moving average and the 786 retracement, and then we could see a bounce. But for now, I would wait to see if it turns around. I think it will do it eventually, but at the moment we are still in a correction phase. The Henry Hub nat gas, US gas, has opened significantly higher this morning. Here you can see this morning here above $4. If it does close above $4, doesn't close the gap, you can see it actually closed just below Friday after spiking a little bit. But if it does close above $4, then we have confirmed the uptrend, and I think we'll see it pushing higher towards $4.90 and $5 on the medium term. Interest rates are pushing higher. Here we have the US 10-year Treasury yields pushing higher, now taking out the 473.5, 475 key level. Positive sentiment, bullish trend on short and medium term. We are eyeing 5% on the US 10-year. It seems like we are headed that way. Also, the 2-year is on the move. It has broken its range above 437. Not a big surprise, because after bouncing from the 415 and the 55 moving average and positive sentiment on the RSI, we are headed towards 4.5%. The EuroBund 10-year, the Euro 10-year yields also pushing higher, touched almost 4.6% Friday, but is also on the move. Excuse me. It's also on the move, and is pushing higher towards 265, 270. No strong resistance until then. There is a little bit strong resistance here around just around 260, but it's not the strongest one. Could be a little bit of setback, but likely pushing higher. We can see also positive sentiment. We are stretched on the RSI, but there's no divergence indicating likely higher levels. Also here on the UK 10-year, and if we are moving on to the monthly, we have to adjust the chart a bit, and we talked about it last week. We are actually in a bullish trend towards 5.25, 5.5. Bitcoin, and let's just adjust it to daily chart once again. Zooming in here, we can see Bitcoin is still above 92,000, 90,068. We have this neckline here in what could be a shoulder pattern. If it takes out that support and neckline there, well, then there's potential down to around 73,000. So keep an eye on that, or if it can crawl back above 55 moving average. Sorry about that little alarm there. Ethereum, quite heavy, seems to be selling off here this morning. If it takes out 3,000, well, then there's potential lower to around 78 and maybe even down to a 74 level again. All right, that's all for today. Have a nice day, and talk to you again soon. And please check out the semiconductor update I did last week on some of the big semiconductors. It's worth a view. Thank you very much.